Thanks for listening to Gossip with Celebrity, brought to you by Celebrity.com. This week we talk about the royals, Chris Pratt, and tell ghost stories. Our user feedback is about butterfly hate, and we end with our weekly feature, the comments of the week. The stories, photos, and tweets we talk about can be found at Celebrity.com/podcast under episode 71. Hi, I'm Katie, the founder and editor of Celebrity.com, and I write as Celebrity.
And I'm Chandra. I'm the head writer for Celebrity, and I write as Kaiser.
So I asked you, could we take next week off because of the election, and I am just so tired.
I'm enjoying myself a little bit. I'm not watching the news, so I'm not stressed out at that level, but I've been enjoying social media. Today, as we're recording, Trump has released his own 60 Minutes interview, and he thinks it's going to be some proof, some evidence that he was mistreated in the interview, when really he just is a total dumbass. So that made me laugh.
He always thinks he's mistreated. It doesn't matter how stupid he looks. That's his whole thing.
Just the whiniest son of a bitch you ever want to see.
He's bad.
Someone called the Wambulance.
I deleted Twitter off my phone because I've been checking it way too much, and it's too addictive for me. But I can still look at it in the browser on my phone. It's just really small, so I can't really see it. But I'm going to just try to stay off social media a little bit ahead of the election. Although last night was really fun to see Giuliani's got caught with his hand down his pants. What a gross old man he is.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting, deranged. Everyone that really gets in Trump's orbit ends up so burned, so compromised.
No, I mean they're the people who are stupid enough to get in that situation and gross enough. Yeah, I mean I agree with you too. I didn't know he had that 20-year-old press secretary or something.
Yeah, Mike Redmond posted that.
Yeah,
that was fascinating.
I didn't read that when it came out. It came out a year ago, and she's still his press secretary, and there's pictures of her with guns, others with her boobs hanging out around Giuliani. Dress how you want, but that's not very professional.
And Giuliani still acts as Trump's lawyer.
His other lawyer went to prison.
Michael Cohen? Yeah, he's trying to buy his soul back. It's not working.
All right, so you wanted to talk. I voted already. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast. I voted a couple weeks ago. I should have taken pictures of myself or something. I don't know.
I was thinking about voting early too, but the Virginia Board of Electors or whatever it was, they sent me an invitation to get an absentee ballot. I was like, fuck it. I just filled it out, and then I got my absentee ballot, and then I was like, all right, sure, I'll vote this way. And you can track it online to make sure that it gets to wherever it needs to get to, and I tracked it yesterday, and it's already there. So.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, everyone needs to go out and vote. As you were talking about, Kamala has said, make a plan. If you already haven't early voted or cast your absentee ballot, just make a plan for some part of the day on election day when you can actually go and physically vote.
Yeah, just look up where your polling place is. You can go to iwillvote.com to check where it is. All right, so let's talk about the royals. Harry and Meghan did a Time 100 talk, and I watched part of it. It was pretty good because it was with a couple of people who, one man was the expert quoted most in the Social Dilemma, which is this new documentary on Netflix that I watched about last week, I think. And his name is Tristan Harris, and he's the founder of the Center for Humane Technology. The stuff he was saying on the Social Dilemma was chilling. And it's all stuff you kind of know, but you didn't know the extent to which people's opinions and misinformation can be bought and sold. And it was kind of scary to me. But I'm glad that Harry and Meghan are taking on these kind of important issues.
Yeah. As Americans, I think we know how social media is being abused, but we haven't had this huge example of it say, Britain has. The way that
with Brexit,
their Facebook was, data mined with the Brexit vote and all of that stuff. That was a huge controversy in Britain. So I feel like Harry is sort of edging up to that. I mean, I guess we've had that too with 2016 election and all the fucking Nazis on Facebook as well.
Well, the QAnon and Pizzagate would not have happened without Facebook.
Yeah.
And one thing they described in the doc was that Pizzagate gained traction because people who were inclined to those beliefs, who were searching on other things, would get ads for it and for groups promoting it. They weren't actively searching for it, and they wouldn't have been aware of it without Facebook. And it's outrageous. The goal is just to keep people stuck to the platform and spending as much time there, not to give them anything that's true or real.
Right. And bringing it back to Meghan and Harry, like, I hope that people are actually taking the time to listen to the larger points that they're making, because they're not in a position to, like, sit there and say, you know, QAnon is fucking bonkers and you need to stop this shit. Like, they can't say that because that really will be quote unquote political. Yeah. They're talking around that. And it's not just people are mean to us in particular, which is what I feel like a lot of anti-bullying, social media, ethical, whatever conversations are about. It's about a celebrity saying, don't be mean to me. Meghan and Harry are making it a much larger conversation. And
another expert they had on was Sophia Noble. She wrote a book called Algorithms of Oppression, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. And so they're bringing it back around to the topic of systemic racism. That kind of hate and misinformation is being spread too. Someone was showing that if you search on professional and unprofessional hairstyles for women, it's really biased against Black women. That sort of thing happens. And Google people wouldn't believe in flat earth theories if they couldn't search it without a lot of challenges. They showed that on the doc too. And I was like, yeah, it's true. Like, how are they, going down those rabbit holes makes more money for these companies. It sounds crazy, but it's sad. And the genocide in Myanmar is a direct result of Facebook.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My son knew about it because he'd seen it on John Oliver. He did an episode of it, but they talked about that on The Social Dilemma and just mentioned it briefly in the interview with Harry and Meghan. But yeah, it really affects people. People are getting killed. Black people are getting targeted, and people are feeling emboldened in America too, and that's despicable.
It's a good issue for them. I feel like it's a complicated issue with a lot of nuance. It will be interesting to see what they do long term about it.
I think they're showing, just by being so educated and by letting the experts speak about these issues, they're showing that they're bringing awareness to them. And when Harry and Meghan talk about something, people will listen. And, we're talking about it here.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of promotional interviews with Robert Lacey. We've been talking about that for a couple weeks. He's the author of The Battle of the Brothers. And he's been talking out of both sides of his mouth. Like, we talked about that too. He's not pro Sussex or pro Cambridge. He's just trying to make money. But
the early promotion for the book, it sounded like he was saying that William had done a lot of stuff wrong and that William was a rage monster. And then he had to reel that shit in. It happened over the course of maybe a week. Robert Lacey started saying, oh, but Meghan is terrible. Oh, but Harry was awful. Now Lacey has started doing interviews in the American press, and it's like, we have global media. We know the shit that you've been saying in the British media.
Yeah.
But yeah, now he's pretending that, like, Meghan has a great personal story and maybe she was treated badly.
Which is true. And that's what the Americans want to hear, because we see her as a success story and aspirational in a lot of ways. What did you describe him as? Just like an old man who's mad at everybody or something like that?
I don't know. He is. I mean, he's not really mad at anyone. He's just talking shit about everybody. And he's hoping that like no one realizes that he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Yeah.
So we saw Will and Kate. They did a couple of events on Tuesday, and they're still not consistently wearing masks. They only wore masks to meet hospital workers, probably because at that time it was required. And they went to another event. It was a showing for Kate's photography contest, Hold Still. They were outside, but they didn't wear masks for that. And that's just a bad look. Whenever you're around other people, you should wear a mask.
Yeah, and the Queen went out maskless. They made this big fucking deal about how everyone around her was tested, so that's why they could go maskless. And I feel like William and Kate are playing into this whole idea that, oh, well, you don't really have to wear masks all the time, and we're just following so-and-so regulations. That's not good enough for a public figure. It just isn't.
No, it's very Trump-like. And the Queen is 94 years old. This was her first event in 7 months. She could have set an example. Even if she's been tested, the thing is, regular people can't get tests all the time. Maybe it's a little bit different in England. Maybe there's more widespread testing. I haven't heard that. But it's not a good look for them to just go without masks and act like it's no big deal. It's douchey.
I think in Britain, those rapid tests are more common, but those rapid tests are not very reliable. Like, there are all these false positives and false negatives. And that's what the White House was using for months. Remember that?
Yeah, that worked out great for them. Plus, Trump probably refused to get tested. My ex-husband's German. He came and visited us. And when he went back, he got a test from the German Red Cross right at the airport. Mm-hmm. So he could figure out if he needed to quarantine again. That's the only person I've been around maskless other than my son. And yeah, he was negative. He did fine. But I think they do have more widespread testing in England too, because they have it in Germany. I'm pretty sure it's similar.
Right. But once again, it's not even about testing. Just wear a fucking mask.
Yeah.
It's just that.
Yeah, no.
I'm not saying that to correct you. I'm just saying, like, for the Queen,
no,
for
I know.
Kate and William, your public figures, just wear a mask all the time to role model that behavior. I'm like, we're broken records on this, but I cannot believe how stubborn they are being.
Especially with the Queen. Like, it's one thing Will and Kate being blasé about it, but the Queen, it comes from the top, and she's like, it's an example for them and for the world, but whatever. I mean, I'm angry too. So we also, this week, there was the big Avengers push with Kamala Harris on her birthday. That was really cute. They did like a group get out the vote and little trivia thing. And right before that, there was an internet meme where Chris Pratt, there were like the 4 Chris's, and it was on Twitter. One has to go. One Chris has to go. And everybody picked Chris Pratt because he's low-key Republican. He belongs to that anti-LGBTQ church. He gave away his cat on the internet back when he was with Anna Faris because the cat got old and was peeing on stuff. I mean, he's an asshole.
Yeah, there's a whole list of why Chris Pratt sucks. But the thing is that this conversation has been around for years. Like, people have been saying for years now that Chris Pratt kind of sucks. Chris Pratt is kind of the worst Chris.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, every few months, someone will put together that list of 4 and say, you know, like, who's your favorite or who's your least favorite, something like that. And everyone always says, Chris Pratt is the worst. I don't know why.
For some reason. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it got picked up by, like, E! News, and, like, a few people, like, picked up this one tweet, and they, like, tried to make it their own. And that's what got Katherine Schwarzenegger, who is Chris Pratt's wife, and Robert Downey Jr., and Zoe Saldana, and Mark Ruffalo. They all, like, jumped to his defense in a, like, really crazy, over-the-top way that really was not necessary and was a Streisand effect.
Yeah, it was a Streisand effect, yeah.
Just about how Chris Pratt sucks.
I bet he called in for some help if his wife is doing it and then all his friends are doing it. He wants people to defend him for getting called out for his beliefs, which he's been trying to sort of hide, but not really.
Yeah. Okay, so if he's a Republican and he doesn't want to talk about it, so be it. But we have every right to discuss that amongst ourselves. Don't judge us for saying, actually, we don't want to give you money. Actually, you kind of suck and you belong to a stupid church.
And how fragile is he if he can't?
Yeah.
Like, we're basically saying, what Chris don't we want to screw, right? It's Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt, we don't want to screw.
Yeah.
And, like, who cares? You know, okay, haha, go cry into your millions of dollars. Like, why are you so touchy about a few people not liking you on the internet? Yeah, Twitter is kind of, my Twitter is kind of a liberal echo chamber. So those people aren't going to like you. Big fucking deal. You know, suck it up. It's part of your job. And it's not hate to say that.
Right. And, like, all right. So most of it was just about that one of the Chris's has to go. But I think because that tweet happened just before the Avengers Assemble fundraiser, get out the vote event, I think people conflated the two things. and said, actually, we don't like him because he's not even participating in this Biden event. I think that was what Mark Ruffalo's tweet was about. Mark Ruffalo was like trying to cape for the guy and say like, dude, I'm a progressive and even I like Chris Pratt. He's a good dude. Who gives a shit? It's just another white man standing up for a white man. And the fucking privilege of everyone saying, oh, well, he doesn't have to get involved in politics. It's just not his style. Well, yeah, because he's a white man. It doesn't affect him.
Being apolitical with air quotes around it at this point in history is such an asinine move.
Right.
It's saying that it doesn't affect you because it won't, because you're white. And white women try to pull it, but it does affect them. And the only people who can truly say that are white men, I think.
Yeah. And it really did remind me of the Chris Evans thing, although Chris Evans obviously participated in the Biden-Harris event. And he's more of a Democrat in general.
Yeah.
And
he loved Kamala.
I like Chris Evans for that, even though he does do the both sides crap, like whatever. But it reminded me of Chris Evans because everyone had to get all up in arms to defend the poor, maligned, rich white man.
He leaked his own.
He leaked his own nude,
pics,
and everyone had to run and protect the guy.
It was a few years ago, but when other people hacked Jennifer Lawrence and some other young actresses, nobody was stepping up to defend them.
Nope.
And then the conversation came up about Brie Larson when she got a lot of hate online for asking for diverse interviewers and movie reviewers for Captain Marvel. Don Cheadle defended her. Nobody else did.
Yeah.
None of those other Avenger white guys defended her.
Well, Brie Larson was getting attacked for everything. It wasn't just like, oh, I would like to speak to women of color. She was being attacked for being a woman. She was being attacked for headlining a Marvel movie. And Chris Pratt and Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., they didn't have any fucking thing to say about it then.
I mean, maybe it's because they didn't personally work with her. Well, we didn't know her yet. She's really a decent person. Because she was on her own for that movie. You know, she hadn't been part of their little clique.
Well, Sam, she knew Sam really well. Sam Jackson.
Yeah, because they filmed together, yeah. Oh, here's a segment from Zoom where we talked about this, and this is Ameerah, Lisa, and Zakia.
That's what I don't get. I'm like, the injustice. Oh, no one wants to sleep with him. The injustice. Meanwhile, like Brie Larson was getting like death threats and you didn't hear a peep out of any of them. So I'm just like, whatever. I even left a nasty comment on Robert's post on his IG. I was like, really? Really? Okay, Rob. Okay.
Mark Ruffalo is my number one. Like, he's already had a couple of things before that were like, he's not quite a problematic fave, but he's not done the best in the past. But when he was I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Stop.
I was just going to say, I hope Chris Evans just stays out of it and just stays quiet. Yes. Like, please don't say anything.
Don't say anything.
I hope Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth tweet and are like, well, we're still in, and say something like that.
I mean, Chris is still like the number one for a lot of people. So I think it would behoove him to just stay quiet, so stay the number one. But for Mark, I feel like he's one of those people who he's very good at talking about his principles, but I don't know how good he is at applying them because he seems to have different rules for the people that he knows. And that bugs me because that just makes you a hypocrite.
All right, so Halloween is coming up next weekend, and you brought up ghost stories because you saw a story in People about haunted roads and it reminded you of a ghost story that you wanted to talk about. I wanted to put in a plug for podcast number 34 that came out last year where we told some ghost stories and we spoke to Hecate. She has some scary ones. You did too. Holy shit. I can get goosebumps if I just remember yours.
Yeah, I mean, some scary shit has happened to me. I don't like scary stories, but yeah.
That's probably why.
All right, so let me preface this in a kind of a long-winded way. So I don't actually live in like bumfuck Virginia. I live in a suburb and I'm close to a city.
I live in bumfuck Virginia.
Yeah, you sort of live in bumfuck. But like to like get to any town, to get to anywhere, you basically have to drive through 15 to 20 miles of bumfuck in any direction.
Yeah.
They're just these very isolated parts of the highway where you can drive for 20 minutes and not see a fucking thing. Except for like a couple of really crazy, ghosty haunting little dirt roads, and you're like, holy shit, I bet some like really crazy people live back there.
They do. I ride my motorcycle back there. Some of the shit I see, some of it's cool, but some of it's like, wow, people live here. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the kind of shit that you see out in the middle of nowhere when you're like trying to travel 20 miles between towns in Virginia.
Yeah.
So for a few years, my mom lived in this tiny little town, and it would take me like 30 minutes to drive from my house to her house. And I hated the drive because I had to go through 20 miles of bumfuck.
Yeah.
And it was always really creepy at night because there were hardly any lights around, and it was just pitch black darkness. And so I was leaving her house. It wasn't even crazy late. It was maybe like 9 p.m., but it was a winter night, and so it was really, really dark. And as I was coming out of her little town, you know, and all the lights were petering away, there were a few cars on the road, and they were, you know, turning off onto little dirt roads with other murderers and all that. All right, and so here is another thing. I'm a good driver, and only a few things really annoy the hell out of me, and one of them is when someone just hangs out in my blind spot, on my left side. Yeah. I hate that as a driver, and I was in the slow lane, and someone was hanging out in my blind spot, and they had their brights on, and they would not leave my blind spot for miles and miles and miles.
It's creepy.
And it was freaking me out, and my heart was pounding. And I'm like upset about it even now, thinking about it. Absolutely desolate, no other cars around, and he was just in my blind spot. And I could see the lights, you know, in my rear view, and I was like, guy, you know, figure out something else out. I would try to slow down, he would slow down. I tried to go faster, he would go faster. And I was just about to like try to find some sort of exit, try to find some sort of turn off because he was really upsetting me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the car disappeared. I swear to fucking God, the car disappeared. He didn't turn off. All of a sudden, I blinked, and there were no more lights.
That's crazy.
That's my story of driving in rural Virginia.
I don't go to those back roads except during the day. Like, but I've been to like your area, and to get there is like through all these windy, annoying roads, and I try not to go at night. I try not to drive in the back roads at night. The exception was when my parents lived out here, and they lived out in the county, and I would have to drive out to them. And sometimes, you know, it's scary out there with the rednecks. They get up right behind you like that and trying to intimidate you. And, you know, you'll pull over because people drive around drinking beers and throwing them out their pickup trucks, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes scary like that. I'm sorry that you went through that. It sounds so...
Yeah, that was a really freaky incident.
I bet. I asked in Zoom if anybody had any ghost stories, and only one was kind of creepy. That's Amber talks at first. You'll hear that. And then the others are really touching, actually. They're about people losing loved ones who came to visit them. And it was really deep, and it was a good discussion. And this is Amber, Karen, Alnaz, and Kimberly Ann.
My dad is a remarkable person in a lot of ways. And he happened to have come into direct contact with two of the most notorious murderers of the 20th century. So, first one is Charles Manson. He was 12 years old, and he was on a field trip to the courthouse on the day they arrested him. And he says the bailiff just came in and was like, okay, kids, everyone line up against the wall, don't move. And they brought him in. And my dad had no idea who this person was. Like who Charles Manson was. He thought he looked like a hobo, but when he made eye contact with my father, my dad says his blood ran cold and he wanted to vomit, and he was like, oh my God, this guy is evil, like he's evil. So that happened. And then a few years later, my dad is buying fireworks in LA. And guess who else was buying fireworks at the exact same stand? O.J. Simpson. So my dad is just like Forrest Gump. And that's my spooky Halloween story. That's all I got.
Well, I remember when my mother passed away, and like maybe the night before her funeral. I mean, my father was so proud of the dress he picked out for her. And I knew she hated it. I mean, it was literally something she would not be caught dead in. But I couldn't bring myself to tell him that. So the night before the funeral, she came to me and told me she didn't like the dress. And the morning of the funeral, as we were getting ready, and my sister said, I had a dream about Mom last night. And she was asking me how she looked. And, I told her she looked fine. I said, well, Lisa, she doesn't like the dress. So my mom visited both me and my sister the night before the funeral. And my nephew was really young when my mom passed away. And so when she passed, Justin was laughing. And he was like maybe 3 or something like that. And so Justin was, he said he used to call her Ma. He said, Ma, she tickled me. She used to visit him a lot because she said when they would leave the apartment, Justin would turn to the couch and he would wave to the couch. So he was waving to her. When he was younger, she would visit him a lot after she passed.
My grandma had this thing of she had this thing of not with the dead specifically, but just before you died, she dreamed that you'd get picked up in a car that she was in. And so it would be like the day before you died, the person died, she would dream that a car drives up to the house, she's in the car, and that person would be picked up in the car and then they would drive away. And so every single one of her family members, until the time that she passed, the day before they died, she dreamt they died. And the day that she died, I mean, I don't know if she had that dream, obviously, but she knew it. So she either had the dream or something, because it was before cell phones when she passed away. So you'd have she'd call the family members on the fixed phone once a week or whatever. And it was usually on Sundays. And this was a Wednesday, but she called every single one of her children and all of her grandchildren on the Tuesday night. And she made me come and sleep with her. Like I used to do when I was really little, even though I was 16 years old. And then, got up and, went to school because she knew that was going to be her last day. She died in her sleep.
So my father passed away last December. So December of 2018. And the day he died, when we all went home and whatever it was, I'm an only child. My dad didn't have any family. Like my mom and I were like it for him. He knew my son for about 1.5 years before he passed away. And I saw my dad. I don't know how I forgot about this. I saw my dad in my bathroom mirror that faces my son's room. So I saw him outside of my son's room smiling, which my dad never smiled. So it was actually a little creepy at first. So we're not very religious, but we're religious, we're Catholic. And we just hope that maybe he's a guardian angel. And my son still says that he talks to my dad when he's awake or when he's asleep. And, we've all had those kind of moments where we think we feel him or something like that. So
there is that thing sometimes, isn't there, of like, I grew up in a very, very religious family. I won't say that I'm religious myself, but a bit more maybe spiritual than religious. But there is this thing sometimes where you can feel the presence, right? Like whether it's, whatever you want to call it, but you almost feel like it's, they're there and they're taking care of you somehow still.
That's really nice. I sometimes, I have dreams about my grandma sometimes, and I feel like she visited me at night.
Yeah, I dream about my dad, and I think he might be visiting me. And I always he was Hindu, so if he's been reincarnated, he's probably started over as like an insect. And I always think about that whenever I'm looking at insects. I'm like, is that you, Dad?
Do you not smush them? Do you not smush them in your house because you feel bad?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't smush them.
Aw.
The one exception is like ants. I'm like, I'll kill those fuckers.
No, ants are bad, especially those tiny ones. Do you ever eat on the couch and then the ants get in the couch and you're like, shit? In my old house.
No.
In my old house. It was so drafty. I'm so glad I'm out of that house. I had mice and ants. And every spring, and I would eat on the couch watching TV, and the ants would come. So I'd have to put out the bait under the couch and whatever.
No, that was hard. That's horrible.
It's annoying. God. Yeah. I lived with it, whatever.
But crickets and grasshoppers and little moths. I try not to kill them.
I hate it when there's like a cricket or something in your house and it keeps making noise randomly and you're like, what is that thing? Where is it? I'm gonna kill it. That's good of you.
Well, honestly, because the cats like crickets. They like to eat them.
Oh, let your cats do your business for you.
Yeah. They're like, we'll hunt. We'll hunt the crickets.
Look at it for you. All right, let's move on to the user feedback. So we got an email from Bianca in Australia. She wrote, love you and Chandra on the podcast. It's a Monday afternoon here when I get them, so I often listen when I'm out walking the dog. People must think I'm crazy as I laugh and nod to what you both are talking about every week. Aw, that's nice. Thank you, Bianca.
I'm jealous of her Australian life.
She might be in the good, I'll ask her where she is, because some of the Australians are still on lockdown and some aren't. Like in Western Australia, they're doing fine. I think in other areas, they still have restrictions. But yeah, I have friends in quotes. I know people on Instagram who are Australian. They're having weddings and stuff, you know. So Diane sent us a message on Instagram last week. You might remember we were hating on geese and squirrels and different animals that we dislike in episode 70. So Diane wrote, Katie, you're so right about the geese. My city has a little park with a bunch of geese and they attack people all the time. They're horrible creatures. But also so are butterflies and they'll attack the shit out of you. They're just colored moths and don't deserve the respect they get. Okay, that is awesome. I've never heard anybody hating on butterflies before. Have you? I mean,
how could you hate butterflies? Butterflies are beautiful.
I respect
and they're
that.
harmless.
I respect that. The way she delivered that, I'm like, okay, I'll rethink my opinion of butterflies. If you hate them, maybe they are terrible. She must have had a butterfly incident like my geese incident.
What kind of butterfly incident, though, really? I
Like
mean,
if they're migrating or something, a bunch of them could be scary, you know. I don't know.
how is that scary? That sounds awesome. If you
It would
get
be
like
pretty, yeah.
caught up in a swarm of butterflies, that would be awesome.
Oh. So she also told us she listens to us every week when she's washing her hair. And after your scary story last week, she legit thought someone was going to break in and murder her in the showers, psycho style.
Well, that story from Jezebel.
Yeah, I didn't even watch it because I mean, I heard you tell me it, and I was like, okay, that's good enough. I'm not watching it. Let's move on to the comments of the week. So my comment of the week is on the link post about the New Yorker's Jeffrey Toobin jerking off during a Zoom call. Ugh. Fancy Pants wrote, must be rough for men this year not having as much access to sexually harass women in person.
No, but like, think about it. It's true. Obviously, it's not rough for men, but like, men must be like really going through it that they can't sexually harass people in person now.
Be inappropriate. They have to do it. So there's a tweet about this that I thought was kind of funny. She goes by the Volatile Mermaid and her handle is Oh No She Twitten. I'll put this tweet in the post or a link to it. It says women, oh, I better put on some makeup before the Zoom meeting. Men, oh, I better jerk off during the Zoom meeting. Like, how does that occur to him?
Jeffrey Toobin is gross.
He is.
Anyway.
There was more stories about him sexually harassing women and being inappropriate. And so.
All right. My comment of the week was from that amazing President Obama speech that he gave in Philadelphia on Wednesday, October 21st. And he was just on fire. You could just tell that Barack Obama was in a mood. And that mood was, I don't give a shit. I'm going to tell you what's going on right now. And he was so funny. And so Midnight at the Oasis said, President Obama was on fire, watched it live, and then rewatched the video. Everything he said was on point and true. And you know he got under the orange fool's skin. I told my husband, a baseball fan, that Biden and Kamala were the starting pitchers and Obama is being utilized now as the closer. He's here to help finish the game and get the win for the team. Yep.
He is. Fingers crossed, knock wood and all that. And by the time we record again, we'll know for sure. By the time the next podcast comes out.
Oh, God.
I know. It's a lot. It's been a lot. And
it has been a lot.
Yeah.
And every day feels like it's a week long.
At least it's been a lot. It seems like every day is a week. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be such a huge mess. Oh, well, go out and vote, people, and fuck the police.
Thanks for listening, bitches, and go vote. All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Celebrity Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. If you like us, please turn off your ad blocker when you visit our site. You can text us or leave a voicemail at 434-218-3219. Our music is from AA Alto, Maiden, and via Premium Beat and Sound of Picture. Thanks again.